Hi, friends. Good day for all of you. First of all, I wish everyone a happy new year and may your goals and your ambitions will fulfill in the coming days. So, I really hope so. So, in this today's video, so as our first video in this new year, I'm going to talk about a few points on, a lot of people in my circle and a lot of people, those who are in my circle, they're actually asking about can a fresher learn DevOps and how DevOps is going to benefit for a fresher and what is the path, where can I start learning and what are the different aspects that I need to keep in mind to start learning DevOps, right? So as you already know, a little bit introduction about mine. So my name is Sai. So I have almost 6+ years of IT experience. So mostly into the DevOps practices, right? So I'm a DevOps engineer, a DevOps consultant, DevOps architect. So whatever you frame it. So right, so in this video, we are going to discuss mostly on what is DevOps, right? So what is DevOps and how this is going to benefit for freshers and what is the way a guy who doesn't have any IT knowledge and what is the way that he can start learning DevOps and he can finish that and he will get a good job in a big MNC product based company, right? So now, let me start with one point. So guys, you have every one of us will be ambitious on buying own car or getting some money to buy a car and drive ourselves. So that's pretty cool. Thought every guy who are in the age between 2 to 25 to 30 or 20 to 30 in between. So you have to, let's say for example, you are going to buy a car, right? So what are the points that you're going to keep in your mind? So, right? So what is the favorite model of the car that you have to select, right? And what is the plan that you can arrange some ample amount of money to get that car, right? So you should build certain plan and you can buy your car and you can own it. It's not just, it doesn't happen within very less time frame, right? So it should be some groundwork. You need to earn the money first to buy a car and you have to plan accordingly. What is your requirement, what exactly your necessity to have the car and how this car is going to benefit for you and your family. So that's a middle class guy will have all this kind of perspectives. So but when it comes to, right, if you are properly executing by buying a car and you're getting it, so by earning some money and you're buying it and you're gifting car to your family, that's pretty good. But keep that in mind, it's not a process that you can execute over the night time, right? In the same way, right? So for learning DevOps, which benefits a lot for your career, you have to frame your learning path accordingly, right? So you should have the awareness what is DevOps and why it has to be more in the market and why it is there in the market and why a lot of companies are paying even a minimum base salary of 10 lakhs for a DevOps engineer, right? So that all these aspects you have to understand. Okay, so I don't believe in saying DevOps is kind of development plus operations. I don't believe that, right? So first, let me tell you in my concern what DevOps is. So DevOps is, so for example, you have a company which implementing an application of some web development applications, right? Some web development applications. So these web development applications are for certain usage. So they may benefit for banking customers, they may benefit for telecom industry, they may benefit for any other medical or something else. So, but you have to understand what are the requirements for that particular application, right? And what are the requirements for the client, and what is the time frame that the client is giving to the vendor. Okay, so all these requirements are pretty important when you are going to develop an application. So why this is there in terms of DevOps? So what exactly a DevOps engineer or a DevOps architect role? So what exactly he will do, right? So he has certain responsibilities as a DevOps engineer. So those responsibilities, out of those responsibilities, we will frame what is DevOps, right? Okay, so in IT industries, right? So it might be any application, either it might be a web application, mobile application. So the application should be aligned in a proper manner so that everyone can understand, right? So that application should be user friendly, and that application should be more it should generate more revenue for the company and all the stuff. So for that, right, for that, of course we have developers, we have testers, those are aside, right? So but DevOps engineer is very mandatory position for every application that you are going to develop in the IT industry. So let's see how this is mandate and how DevOps can fulfill the requirements of a client. Okay, so now let me tell you one thing. So I'm going to build an application, a banking application called nab.com, right? So if I'm going to build a banking application called nab.com, so my banking application should have certain functionalities. So those functionalities should help my customers so that they can do online transactions and they can add their savings account. They can make any kind of usage related to the banking transactions. Now, I want this application to be built in certain time interval. So that means I want this application to be built in, for example, let's say the baseline of the application I'm expecting in 4 months. Okay, so this baseline of the application, that means you have to form a blueprint of the application, right? So you have to give certain demos to the client. Okay, this is what we have developed and this is how the application was to be. So if client satisfied, so he will give you an approval, and that will so with the respect to that approval, you will take forward your development process, right? So here, what exactly the DevOps engineer will do? So you have a development and you have the client. So those two people are interacting, right? So now I will tell you a very, very important point, right? So for developing the application, for running the application, even for DevOps, even for the developers, they need certain environment, right? So they need certain environment. So the DevOps engineer is responsible for spinning up and making the environment ready. I know you guys are a bit confused. So let's say you have a car base outline that needs to come out of the market, and everyone in the market are eagerly waiting for that new model. So we have a time frame. So before, what car manufacturer company will do is they will take a blueprint of the car and they will analyze between themselves, and they will think that if we need this blueprint as an outcome, what are the developments that they have to do? So to make those developments, or to get some scrap, to get the hardware, to get the all the electronic things. So as a DevOps engineer, you should be ready to spin up the environment, which helps the manufacturing company to prepare a car, right? So you have machinery. So in the manufacturing companies, you will be having a lot of machineries. Of course, you have all the hardware resources. You don't have machineries, then how can you manufacture a car? That's pretty simple. If you have the machineries ready with you, then you get the hardware equipments to prepare a car, and then you use those machineries, and with the help of those equipments, you prepare a car and you deliver to the customers. So that's how it is. In terms of application, software application as well, a DevOps engineer should ready to make the environment ready for the developers, for the testers, and for the architects. Okay, so here, let me frame you one thing. So like, let's say, for example, I have a developer here, okay, and I have one more tester here, and I have a DevOps engineer here, okay. So this developer should write some code and he should execute that code. So for writing the code and executing the code, he needs a platform. What is that? A platform. And what developer will do? Developer will make a request to the DevOps engineer. Hey, DevOps guy, I need a platform for my code, which I want to make it run. So then DevOps engineer, as a response, he responds to that request and he provides a platform, right? He provides a platform which makes the development environment ready. Okay. So in the same way, as a tester will again request a DevOps engineer saying that, hey, I need a platform where I can test already developed resources. Or what testers will do is, hey, I need access to this particular environment so that I can test already developed code. So that means DevOps engineer is responsible to make this platform up and ready for the testing. He should give access level to the tester as well. It's pretty simple, right? So here I'm going to repeat again. Here you have a developer and here you have a DevOps engineer. So this DevOps engineer is kind of a heart for the application. And here you have a tester. Okay. So what developer is going to do? Developer is going to write code, right? Code. And he makes a request. So he makes a platform request for the DevOps engineer. And what DevOps engineer will do, he makes platform ready. He responds to the request and he makes platform ready and he give access to the developer to the platform. So then developer is going to push the code into the platform and he makes the code up and running. And here tester will come into the picture and again it tests with a DevOps engineer saying that, hey, I want access to this platform so that I can execute some test cases, right? Which is pretty important. Okay, so every application needs to be tested rigorously once it is developed. So that is, it's, we cannot discriminate, okay, developer is having this much importance and DevOps is having this much importance, whereas tester is having a very low importance. No, that's not the case. All the roles, all the designations in the industry is pretty important as per their responsibilities, right? So DevOps engineer may fulfill responsibilities which developer cannot do, and developer may fulfill the responsibilities which DevOps engineer cannot do, and tester may fulfill the responsibilities which both of those guys cannot do, right? So which is pretty important. Every designation inside a project is pretty important, right? So now, okay, on the overline, you have got an idea what DevOps engineer will do. DevOps engineer basically makes the platform ready, right? So there is one more same replication. We have talked in terms of platform. Now we need to talk in terms of application as well. Okay, so this application is the main part that we are developing, and this application is running on a baseline platform which is again prepared by a DevOps engineer. Okay, let us consider this as a platform. Okay, this platform is prepared by DevOps engineer, and this application is built by developers, and they have tested the application on the same platform. Now, okay, so DevOps engineer is completely responsible for moving this platform and application into the production level environment, right? So very important topic, very important responsibility where DevOps engineer will come into picture. Okay, so if you reiterate the process that we have discussed right now, it's pretty simple and which will make you to understand. Developer will write the code and he requests DevOps engineer for the platform where the code is compatible to run, and DevOps engineer as a response he makes the platform ready intimate to the developer. And again, once the developer is completed with his development, again he intimates to the tester saying that, okay, so I have completed the development and this is the platform where I have deployed the code. And you tester go and test it and let me know if any bugs you found. Okay, then again tester will again access DevOps engineer. Hey man, I need access to this particular platform where the development environment is already deployed. So then DevOps engineer has a response. He will give access to the tester, and the tester will access the platform, and he basically have he basically executes a complete rigorous testing process. And once that is done, again DevOps engineer will come into picture to make the entire application and platform ready and available in production environment. It's pretty simple. Straight away DevOps engineer is going to take this environment and he basically uplifts this environment and he put that entire things into the production environment. Okay, so I hope you got a clear idea about where DevOps will fit in a project. Now, let me discuss a point. Is DevOps really benefitable for freshers? So, if they learn DevOps, are they going to get jobs? Of course, yes. It's pretty important. You have to keep that in mind. Even a fresher can write a code, but fresher can ought make this code available on the platform, right? So freshers, as a DevOps, as a developer, if you have some basic idea about a DevOps engineering process, trust me, you are going to get the keen, you are going to capture the keen concentration of your recruiter. Definitely your recruiter is going to hire you. So if you are lag in development, you may have the experience and knowledge of operations, which is pretty important, right? So that's the place where DevOps is more benefitable for freshers rather than experience. Of course, experienced guys, obviously, they will have some DevOps experience and they will get into the stuff. But as a fresher, if you are having development experience, which pretty important, and this development environment and this development things where experienced DevOps engineer cannot do, and you are going to develop the application, and when you go and say to the recruiter, hey, I have some DevOps experience and I have some DevOps knowledge as well, so definitely trust me, a recruiter definitely will capture your resume and at least he'll think about you to take into the project, right? So it is more benefitable. Okay, so now that is one scenario. A fresher is doesn't have any coding knowledge. He just have a basic scripting knowledge. And if he learns DevOps, will he get a job? Of course, yes. So guys, trust me, DevOps is a ruling in the market now. So you take any of the domain. Let's say I'm going to talk about artificial intelligence, which is AI. Every DevOps engineer or every fresher that's currently in the market, they already know what is AI and how it is going to rule the market. And you have machine learning, and you have deep learning, and you have you know these three major important domains, right? So artificial intelligence, machine learning, deep learning, and DevOps. How these three domains, they have started initially as individual, now they are combining each and everything with DevOps engineer. So DevOps engineer, so that means how the outcome should be, right? So they are going to combine each and everything with the DevOps, and now the outcome is like you have certain naming conventions, right? AI ops, right? So ML ops and DL ops. So that means automation, artificial intelligence and operations, machine learning and operations, deep learning and operations. Okay, so when you learn operations, you have knowledge of operations, it is going to benefit as good as possible. Okay, so that's how it is. So that's all about, of course, a fresher can get a job in IT industry if he learns the DevOps. And experience, they already get benefit out of it. So you can start learning DevOps at least now. Okay, so you have the coding knowledge, that's pretty good. The person who are having coding knowledge and they are working in DevOps, they can create wonders in IT industry, trust me. So a lot of my friends are getting packages nearly 30 to 40 lakhs. They are coming from the developer background, and now they are working on the DevOps engineers. That doesn't mean I'm not degrading the developers. So developers has their equal importance too. So, but when you want to upskill according to the current market, so better you learn both. You have the development experience and you have the DevOps knowledge, which basically immensely benefited for you. All right. So this is how what a DevOps is and how this is going to benefit for freshers. But let's see, to learn DevOps, where you have to start. Okay. So let me erase all this. Okay, so first, DevOps is divided into certain wings or certain categories. So the working in DevOps is divided into certain categories, or you can say different stages in DevOps, right? So let me frame like this: stages in DevOps. So DevOps includes the stages like continuous development. The very first stage is continuous development, right? So a lot of people, the developers, will take the requirements from their product owners or the project managers, and they will start developing the applications according to the time frames given to them. And the other one is continuous build process. They have to, of course, they write the code, but what they do with the code, what they do with the raw code, they have to build and form a package, right? The code has to be built and form as a package. The code will be not, of course, in a single file. You will be having multiple files of the code. But at the end of the day, you have to combine all these packages, all these codes, and you have to form a package which basically helps us our application to available and run, right? So this package, we call it as artifact. What was that? Artifact. An artifact which is generated by the build process of multiple code files. Okay, so continuous build is very important. So before build and before before build and in between build and development, there is one more stage called integration, right? So you see, guys, you have a lot of code files needs to be injected in the repositories. So it should be front end codes, it should be back end codes, it should be something like what we say. It should be something like some property files and all the stuff. But at the end of the day, you have to integrate each and everything, and you have to form an artifact, right? So for that reason, continuous build is one of the important concept. Okay, the other point is, so you have um, okay, you have continuous build which is done, and now the other point is continuous testing, which is very important. So you have to prepare an environment and hand over to the testers so that they can execute some test cases on the artifacts, right? So after the continuous testing, you have a process of continuous deployment. Okay, so this deployment will go into different environments. So these are the four different stages of DevOps. So again, the loop reiterates. Once the deployment is done, again continuous development will be started, and it goes to the continuous build, it goes to the test, it goes to the continuous deployment. So all these phases will be reiterating one. So but to get into all these stages, to have the knowledge of all these stages, where you have to learn. Okay, so before getting into that, so let me tell you here, keep that in mind. You are not here to learn tools. You have to learn the process of DevOps. Okay, so how each tool will communicate with each other to form a complete DevOps cycle. Okay, let's say I have I have different categories in DevOps. So basically, DevOps is divided into many categories of tools. So a lot of people, they'll say what DevOps is a certain set of tools and you have to learn and you have to implement those tools. That's completely fine. I agree with that as well. But my personal opinion, DevOps is basically automating the existing process. Okay. So here you have different set of tools that you need to learn, different classification of tools. So don't bother saying when I'm saying different classification of tools, oh my God, I need to learn a lot of tools to get into DevOps. No, just master one particular cloud or one particular tool, then you will get a job in DevOps. But you have to be very clarified in understanding the process of DevOps. Okay, let me tell you one thing. The first one which you have to concentrate is operating system. If you are not familiar with the operating system, you cannot go ahead into the DevOps. So just start. A lot of DevOps engineers, they work on Linux systems. So Linux systems, why? Because they are open source. They are open source, and they can implement a hard level of security in that particular Linux systems. Okay, so now, so start learning Linux. The very first phase that you have to, be in is start learning Linux. So once you completed the Linux, you don't have to learn Linux to the advanced core level. Just learn few concepts which are like, I'll tell you that as well. And after completing Linux, start with any of the cloud environment. It might be AWS or Azure or Google Cloud, anything. So, but the first learning cups, I prefer taking AWS because it's pretty used and it's pretty user friendly. A lot of organizations are mostly using AWS rather than Azure and Google. Of course, they do have their parallel importance as well, but AWS is primary for every company. Okay, so after completing AWS or Azure or Google, either of the clouds, so let's start working on the DevOps. So the first point is you have to learn source code management tools, which are nothing but Git or Bitbucket. So if you get hands-on with these tools, then start doing continuous integration tools. So these continuous integration tools are majorly, I prefer Jenkins. And The other one is Azure or GitHub Actions. Okay, so you can use GitHub Actions or Jenkins, anything. So if a fresher who are learning DevOps, start with Jenkins so that you get a brief idea about Actions as well. Right. So the other tools that you need to focus on, microservices, right? So this microservices is very important, which is the major part of the applications are going on microservices. So that microservices we are going to discuss in the coming lectures. So you focus on these tools primarily when you are starting DevOps career, right? So the first one is operating system, might be Linux or anything. The other one is cloud. So any cloud, any public cloud, AWS, Azure, or Google, and you can learn source code management tool, and which is either of Git or Bitbucket, right? And you can learn any CI tool like Jenkins or GitHub Actions. And the last one is microservices. So these four cycles, right? So these four cycles are the initial stage of learning DevOps. If you are familiarized with these four different classification of the tools, then you can go ahead and learn containerization technologies like Docker and Kubernetes, right? Okay, so that's, I hope you liked it. I hope you got a brief idea and way to learn, way to start, way to, accelerate your learning. So you have to follow in this particular order. So first, learn Linux, get familiarized in Linux, then jump into AWS, and then start with the DevOps tools like SEM, CI, and microservices tools. Okay, so that's all for the today, guys. Thank you so much for your time. Have a great day. Bye bye. I hope you liked the video. Please do subscribe and share my channel.